Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have Alan back with us today. If you saw the other two videos with him, you know he's the author of two outstanding books, Men Fight For Me, which talks about men really being leaders in the fight against human trafficking, and his other book, Prized Possession, which is where Alan models what it's like to be a father that every woman's dream, seriously, in terms of the kind of father they would want to have and the impact of fatherhood on their daughter. Today we're going to talk about the organization that Alan's the director of, Saving Innocence. He's the executive director, and his organization is an anti-human trafficking, community-based organization specializing in the recovery and restoration of child victims of sex trafficking. They are co-leaders of the Los Angeles Regional Human Trafficking Task Force, and they're also a foster family agency. And Alan's going to talk more about that in this interview. Alan is married and has 2 children. Alan, welcome.
Well, thank you for that incredible introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yes. So how long have you been with Saving Innocence, and what does an average day look like for you?
I have been with Saving Innocence for almost 7 years now. Before that, 25 years on the Young Life staff, and stepped away from that. And couldn't be more honored to be in this space right now at Saving Innocence. An average day, there's certainly things, there's standing meetings that I have with the people that report to me, and we do the business of Saving Innocence. But I kind of think of it more of like an 18-hour day. I'm not necessarily working all 18 hours, but things are just happening. And oftentimes later in the evening, I'll get a phone call or a text, and we need an emergency hotel room for usually a minor that we're trying to get out of danger. Sometimes that minor is on the run, and we need to get her back home because she was trafficked into Los Angeles from Texas or some other place, because LA's where all the people are. And so we're buying plane tickets and hotel rooms, and we're trying to work with Homeland Security and FBI and all the different entities to get her home safely. And in the process, I raise a little money along the way to help the organization work, and go on YouTube channels and things like that talking about the work.
Right. In Southern California, Alan is known as a heroic leader in the fight against human trafficking. He's just an extraordinary human being. So what is the size and scope of human trafficking?
I gotta come here more often. You're referring to me as a heroic leader. Where were you before?
Thank you. When you needed to be validated, when it was a tough day, right?
Right. The size and scope of human trafficking. A lot of people are just learning about human trafficking in our country, and there's an interesting concept that it's called the modern day slavery, and there are more people enslaved today than at any time in human history via human trafficking. People that count things, International Justice Mission works internationally, it's in their name, and I think they said between 40 and 45 million slaves, trafficked people around the world, which is an astounding number. Here in our country, most people agree, and honestly, I think it's a little bit low when you kind of get in the weeds a little bit, but a lot of people have said there's at least 300,000 minors, children, being trafficked for sex here in our country. And the vast majority of them are US-born American citizens. Now, there are people being trafficked in across the southern border of our country right now, and we've been involved with a lot of that, a lot of human smuggling rings and brothels that are involving those victims. But most of the children, they're already here. They're already vulnerable. They're already available. So the trafficker doesn't need to worry about crossing a border, because our cities and our inner cities and our foster care systems are infested with vulnerable people. And it's really a tragic, sad reality.
Yes. Can you further break down the role that Saving Innocence plays in anti-trafficking and what it is you actually do for these children?
Yeah, we reside in a really beautiful space. We're contracted by LA County to be first responders, and we partner with law enforcement and all the other county entities. And so when law enforcement usually is the one who would initially encounter what appears to be a child victim of sex trafficking, in this case, in this scenario, and they call us. We've got a team of absolute rock star case manager advocates. They're on call around the clock, 24/7, and we show up. Usually those meetings are in the middle of the night, some weird time, late, early in the morning, and we step into that relationship in the most vulnerable moment that a child, that a human could possibly have. They've been bought and sold like a piece of property, used and abused and discarded. And for most of those young victims, the abuse started long before the trafficker ever entered the picture. Most of these young kids have experienced an early childhood abuse, oftentimes a sexual abuse, and that has degraded them. And then the trafficker walks into an already vulnerable child and begins to dehumanize them and put his brandings on her and begin to sell her either online or on the street. So in that moment, that child has been experiencing that for the last many years. We walk in. One of my favorite people, a survivor who was on our staff for a number of years, she tells her story on the homepage at savinginnocence.org. You should go listen to it. She puts a video on there. It's about an 8-minute video of her telling her life. And she says this. She said, by the time I was 12 years old, I had already been raped 4,000 times. Let that sink in for a moment. And then she was in that life for another 3 years. So by the time we enter the life of this child, a child that's been trafficked like this, it's not an exaggeration to say they likely have been raped in a vile way 10,000 times. So that's the state of affairs when our Saving Innocence advocate shows up. And we're the unique place in this meeting that's happening where we don't want anything or need anything from her. Everyone else is doing their job. Now the cops are trying to get information because they want to go arrest somebody. They're trying to get maybe forensic evidence, however they can. There may be a county social worker that has to check their box and do their thing. We're their value added for this child. And we're bringing them food and a backpack full of clothes and hygiene items. And then we walk with that child for as long as it takes to bring her back to health and wholeness until she doesn't need us anymore. And we love it when the biggest problem that she has is now she's back into school, she's away from her trafficker, and some guy invited her to the prom, and she doesn't know how to do the prom exactly. She hasn't had a childhood, there's not an intact family around her. Well, our advocates spring into action immediately, and we're getting her a dress and hair and help her to do her makeup and all those things that she just has never done before, and we help her go to the prom. It's amazing.
Wow.
So we help to rehumanize and restore the childhood of these young ones who've been stolen from at the deepest level.
Wow. Wow, that's so beautiful. So tell us about your foster family agency.
Yeah, in the course of our work at Saving Innocence, and I alluded to it briefly a moment ago, it was crystal clear to us that the biggest contributor to the vulnerability and availability of young victims of trafficking is the lack of an intact, healthy, loving, protective family. That's what made them vulnerable and available in the first place. And then we step into their life and begin to rebuild them and bring health to them. The largest barrier for their swift and complete escape is there's not a loving, protective, healthy, intact family for them to go to. So maybe the most strategic thing that we as a society and a community could do would be to put together the biggest missing ingredient, and that's a loving, healthy, intact, protective family. So we went through about a 4-year process, become licensed by the state of California and the city of Los Angeles and the county, and now we are an official functioning foster family agency. We're just launching it right now. We've got the staff in place, we have the kids that need homes, and now we just need foster homes. We need families, moms and dads. Go to savinginnocence.org/foster. We have a whole page. There's a beautiful animated video, kind of explainer video. We have a monthly Zoom meeting. You can just ask questions, find out about it. We need families who are willing to be trained by us and then receive the children that we work with. And then we're going to support you ongoingly and create a win-win, most importantly, for this young child that has been robbed of the family she deserves.
Yes, and this is for people in the Los Angeles area, correct?
The Foster Family Agency is for LA County residents, that's right.
Yes. Great. Now, what is the new role for Saving Innocence with the Los Angeles Human Trafficking Task Force?
That's a great question. There's about 50 task forces around the country that are federally funded and fall under that Victims of Crime Agency at the federal level. And one of them is in Los Angeles. And every 3 years or so, it comes up for a new, organization, a new bid. And the sheriff's department asked us, came to us last summer, said, would you be our partners? Because the way the task force works is that it's shared leadership. There's a law enforcement entity and then a service provider entity, and they work together to rally the community, the city in which they live, and provide resources. And so, long story short, after turning in the 1,000,000-page document to the feds, we got accepted. And so now we're co-leaders of the largest task force in the country because it's Los Angeles, and we're Los Angeles, and so it's huge.
And one of the worst cities in the country for human trafficking.
Absolutely.
Both labor and sex.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so it's been a really interesting, challenging, and interesting new chapter of Saving Innocence, because now, just recently, we had a Korean woman trafficked in from Korea that only spoke Korean. And then we had a woman trafficked in who only spoke Mandarin. Well, we have Spanish-speaking advocates, but we don't speak Korean and Mandarin. So we're engaging translation services and all those kinds of things. Human smuggling ring came our way, and so we were involved in that. So there's lots of really important things that are related to the task force that we're honored to be part of.
Yes, I'm so happy that Saving Innocence is the partner. I'm in Southern California, so I go to the task force meetings for all the different regions, and Saving Innocence just has such a fantastic reputation. So what can the average person do to be part of the solution?
Be part of the solution. Number one, we have to acknowledge that there's a problem. How can people fix something that they don't know exists? So I encourage all of you to go down a little rabbit trail and get more educated on what this issue is. What is this we're talking about? Human trafficking? Child trafficking? What? You might be really new to the conversation. I offer savinginnocence.org. Go to our website. There's 5 or 6 videos to watch right there. There's other informationals. Go down the Google rabbit trail and learn about it. So that's step one, learn about it. And with all humility, I'd say go to fightforme.net and buy the book that myself partnered with 6 other amazing survivors. They're sharing their stories, and we're challenging people to get involved. So that's number one, get more educated. And then 2, I never like to answer that question too quickly, Susan. Someone says, what can I do? And then I say, what can you do? Do that. But do it for the benefit of trafficking victims. So do you own a company that does a thing? Well, maybe that thing can help an anti-trafficking agency. Do you have a lot of money? Great, become a donor. Do you don't have any money, but you have a skill or a talent? Great, do that thing. And I think a real tangible, practical thing is wherever you live in the country, or the world for that matter, find an anti-trafficking agency in your community. Email them, call them, and say, what do you need? And then do that. And then if you don't even ask that, find out how many staff they have. Everybody can do what I'm about to say. Find out how many staff. They have a dozen staff there, 5, 10, 20, whatever it is. Next time you go to the store, pick up a dozen Starbucks gift cards or whatever it is. Send them to them with a note. We're cheering you on. Thank you for this work. I can't tell you how important that will be for the advocates who are up around the clock in the most heartbreaking scenarios imaginable to know that somebody sees them. I see you. Thank you. Go have coffee on me. You can do that today and then get a little more educated, find an agency, and if you can't find an agency, go to savinginnocence.org. We'll take your Starbucks gift cards and your donations. But better than that, find an agency that's near you and get involved with your time and your talent and your treasure.
Very good. And for those of you who've been following this channel and have been to the website, throughgodsgrace.com, you know that I wrote a book, How You Can Fight Human Trafficking, over 100 ways to make a difference, that has something for everyone. And our website, we have many events for people to learn about sextortion. We have events for the Black community, the Hispanic community. I mean, our resources are really phenomenal in terms of what's available to equip you, anyone, in the fight against human trafficking. So how can we learn more about and follow Saving Innocence?
And I will just say it's an outstanding book, Susan, and we have it linked on that website I mentioned earlier, fightforme.net, as one of the many resources. We linked that book. Susan's an all-star and laid out some great ways that everyone can get involved. So the way you can get involved, go to savinginnocence.org, join our mailing list. In fact, you come on the screen immediately, you don't have a choice. You have to fill out, you could X out of it and you don't have to do it, but we'd love to get your email address at least and send you a monthly newsletter. You can follow what we're doing. We're on all the Saving Innocence, is everywhere on social media, so go to @Saving Innocence. follow us. And if you see something you like it, reshare it, repost it, all those things. And that's a great way to follow us and support us. And you'll be kept in the know on important things.
Yes, outstanding. Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing with us about the work of Saving Innocence. And I want to just really acknowledge you for everything you do in the community and for these kids. I mean, I had no idea that 10,000 times being raped is the average. I mean, that is just devastating. And it motivates me to do even more. And I hope that's the impact on the audience. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.